dear viewers, and welcome to BBC World, the voice of Pan-Africanism, bringing you the latest news highlights of the hour. I am Tabitha John. Do stay with us, commencing with the headlines. A political economic analyst for Africa said Ethiopia's access to seaport brings immense benefits to all people of East Africa. And ancient West African scripture used in the film Black Panther takes center stage in Dubai Art Exhibition. Prime Minister Petr Fiala of the Czech Republic said his country is desirous to expand its long-standing relations and cooperation with Ethiopia through economic cooperation. On Saturday morning, both Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and Prime Minister Petr Fiala held a discussion at the office of the Prime Minister to review bilateral issues and future cooperation between the two countries. Following his meeting with PM Abiy, the Czech Prime Minister recalled that the Ethio-Czech relations have almost a century of tradition, and there is certainly much to build on. He also thanked Prime Minister Abiy for the warm reception accorded to him and his delegation. PM Petr Fiala believes that the latest meeting between him and PM Abiy will contribute to even better relations between the two countries. PM Fiala noted that the Ethio-Czech cooperation in the field of hydrology tradition and began in the 1970s. In addition to his visit, Fiala also opened the Ethio-Czech Business Forum in Addis Ababa, according to FBC. After concluding his stay in Ethiopia, Prime Minister Petr Fiala is also heading to Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, the Ivory Coast for working visits. Ethiopia and Japan have held a policy dialogue and discussed on the Development Cooperation Charter, the new country assistance policy for Ethiopia, and rolling plan for Japanese assistance to Ethiopia. The meeting was chaired by State Minister of Finance Emerita Sawaso and Japanese Ambassador to Ethiopia Ito Takako. Japanese government held briefings on the draft country assistance policy for Ethiopia. The aim is to support human security, promote economic growth, improve social services, and facilitate Japanese companies' entry into the Ethiopian market. This will strengthen bilateral friendship, cooperation, and Japan's presence in African regional diplomacy. The other targets included promoting a market economy led by the private sector, rebuilding economic infrastructure, establishing a sustainable socio-economic system, and implementing climate change countermeasures and sustainable urban planning. Both sides agreed to finalize the country assistance strategy and jointly collaborate to address the challenges and support for the realization of Ethiopia's development objectives, according to Ministry of Finance. Former Chief Representative of JICA Ethiopia Office, Dr. Morihara Katsuki, new Chief Representative of JICA Ethiopia Office, Oshima Kensuke, and officials for the Ethiopian Public Institutes and from the Embassy of Japan and JICA were also present at the meeting.
Mercy tribe of southern Ethiopia.
Eating raw meat.
እምነት አልባነት መስሎ ተሸጎረ ውሻ
Oh, and there it is.
Wow, that's nice.
Welcome back. You're watching ABC World. Moving on to news items selected for detailed analysis. A political economic analyst for Africa says Ethiopia's access to seaports benefits all people of East Africa. Lawrence Freeman, who has been involved in economic development policies for Africa for over 30 years, underlined that access to port is critical to accelerate the growth trajectory of Ethiopia and contribute to regional physical economic growth of the country. Sarnisa has gone through Freeman's article and compiled the following account.
Lawrence Freeman is a political economic analyst for Africa who has been involved in economic development policies for Africa for over 30 years. Reflecting on Ethiopia's burning issues of the day, in his latest article, Freeman underscored that Ethiopia's economic case for reliable and cost-effective seaport access is strong. In order to secure its economic future, the country must minimize or completely erase the economic costs associated with being landlocked, Freeman argued. Overall, landlocked countries tend to be 20% less developed than they would be if they had access to the sea. This is partially due to cost of trade, with transportation costs being between 50% up to 262% higher for landlocked countries. Freeman pointed out that given the significant economic costs associated with being landlocked, it's a no-brainer that for Ethiopia to achieve its ambitious developmental agenda. This, he said, will necessarily require export-oriented industrialization and improved agricultural productivity. It needs to have more control over trade-related costs and policy. Ethiopia is incurring quite a heavy cost after being landlocked. Transportation costs gobble up 16% of the value of international trade. Foreign trade currently amounts to 24% of GDP and needs to grow by orders of magnitude. With an annual output of $127 billion, Ethiopia is already Eastern Africa's biggest economy, but with lots of low-hanging opportunities for even bigger trade-driven outputs. The article further stressed that last year Djibouti cut stay-off cargo days from 45 to 8 days. In addition, the port is more expensive relative to neighbors, often lacks storage space, and suffers from untimely availability of empty containers for exports. As of last year, Djibouti City's share of Ethiopian trade cargo has dropped to 86% from its previous figure of 95%. The Kenyan border Moyale Dry Port, Somaliland's Berbera, and Djibouti's Tajora emerging as alternatives. These latter routes, however, lack infrastructure to support bulk haulage logistics. Ethiopia is Djibouti's leading revenue generator ahead of the naval base leases by China, France, the United States, Saudi Arabia, Italy, and Japan. Ethiopian trade reportedly generates more than $1 billion each year of the Djiboutian economy. Rents from foreign military base estimated to be at least $120 million per year. The service sector accounts for nearly 80% of Djiboutian GDP, much of it related to ports and logistics. Ethiopia accounts for upwards of 85% of all cargo passing through Djibouti. Freeman also stated that Ethiopia's planned rail network reflects the country's industrialization agenda.
And finally, a rare art exhibition in Dubai is exploring an ancient West African scripture that has become known well beyond African shores thanks to the film Black Panther. It is all part of ongoing efforts to build cultural bridges between the continent and the UAE, which recently hosted its very first Dubai Calligraphy Biennale. Johannes Fantahun presents GTN Africa's file.
An ancient West African script dating back centuries is now being seen and admired, walled away from the Secretive Society, where it originated thanks in part to one of the highest grossing blockbusters of all time.
Black Panther actually is really important for the, I really like that the movie picked it up out of African history. A lot of the symbols are in there, and that the way that it's been depicted as symbols of power, and I was really impressed by that.
And those symbols originating from Nispidi, an ancient graphic communication indigenous to parts of Nigeria and Cameroon, has been studied for decades by Victor Ikpok and also serves as inspiration for his latest exhibition, Interwoven Texture, showing at Ifi Gallery and part of Dubai's Calligraphy by Anwar, where he has become one of the few African artists to unveil a major public sculpture in the UAE.
It resonates with the Middle East aesthetics of abstraction and writing. The works behind me here are sets of portraitures. My work in general looks at the human condition. These three sculptures are inspired by, again, heads, musing about the heads where it is our seat of consciousness, how we identify ourselves.
And the script used in these pieces is one close to Victor's own Nigerian heritage.
It's actually part of me. I'm Ibibio by ethnicity. There's an elite fraternity that uses it as a means of communication, share marks among their members, and they use them to test knowledge, they use them to record, for public record and things like that. So that's why I came to it.
And with that, a strong desire to showcase a part of the West African culture that the outside world perhaps didn't even know existed.
Part of history, as was written by other people about Africa, was that for most part was an illiterate culture. If literacy was not a Roman alphabet, then it didn't exist. So I guess what this does is opens up a conversation about the non-Eurocentric literacy or a knowledge system.
The hope is that being able to highlight these cross-cultural commonalities could challenge perhaps dated views about Africa and bring people together in new ways.
Well, dear viewers, that's all we had for this hour's news edition. Many thanks for watching. Have a good time.